thank you for being here. Please also not only listen, but get involved as well in the conversation. That's the whole idea. And I now give the floor to Nico Dockx.
I would like to bring to the floor Iris Paschalidis and Frederik Swennen. So we start first with Iris, who is an art historian and is responsible for the collection curator at the SMAC in Ghent. And you have been collaborating with Jef in the past, so let's see which presentation you bring to us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning, dear all. And thank you for having me as the first speaker of this day. I will try to wake you up or to at least keep you awake with this presentation. Yes, I've been asked to talk briefly on this day about Jef Geys, more specifically on the meaning of archive in his work. So I will take the exhibition he made at SMAC in 2015, almost 10 years ago now, as a starting point. Anyone who knows Jef Geys as an artist knows that he was not only building an archive around his art, but the archive is or became his art, and thus a kaleidoscopic environment gradually arising around his work. How do I go? Yeah. As a subtitle, I wrote Archief, maar niet retrospectief, archive, but not retrospective, because reminding the first meeting I had with Jef Geys on his exhibition in SMAC, he immediately spoke out his reserve towards the concept of retrospective in relation to art, exhibitions, artists. Okay, Iris, he said, I certainly want to do that exhibition, but I'm not making a retrospective exhibition, you know. You can do that kind of things when I'm dead. So it's happening now. It's interesting to pose a few questions around the exhibition he made in, I will give you a sign, Nico. He made in SMAC. And I pointed out two questions. What place or meaning did the exhibition at SMAC have in the work and art of Jef Geys? It was, of course, the last museum exhibition he created and conducted by himself in close collaboration with Inge Goddelijn for the installation, as always. And it was an example of an exhibition in which the archive is the story, actually, an exhibition with summary and referential nature. And the second question, how does Jef Geys use his archive and his work to make this exhibition? He was in fact exploring and exposing the relation of the museum history and his project, his past project, executed or not, in relation to each other, rather to each other. So he's like making circles around his work and broader events or projects. And another important thing there was the fact that he forced a kind of rehabilitation for the acquisition of the door of Chambre d'Amis. We will discuss this later. And the connecting institutes, the CAF story, I don't know if people know, but the connecting museums between each other. And there was this Flemish government platform called CAF to connect them and to have collaboration. Yes. So, what do I want to say next? Yeah, these questions were just one way to take you inside the thinking process of Jef Geys, as far as I was allowed to witness this. So it's just my point of view also. It's always with Jef Geys, you have 1,000, a million points of views if you want to. And in the exhibition in Ghent, Jef Geys referred to many things that refer back to other work of his own, to other exhibitions, as I said. So what I will bring on is a brief impression of the making process of the exhibition. What I have here, I started with writing a letter to the request if Jef Geys was überhaupt interested to have this exhibition in SMAC, because there was a history with the museum and with Jan Hoet. There's no time here to discuss this, but I think we all know, yeah. And I decided to not send him an email, an ordinary email, but to write a letter. And I found this old writing paper of the old museum, the Museum van Hedendaagse Kunst in Ghent. And I wrote the letter with the request on that paper. And then he was very quick with his reply, which I will read in Dutch because it's untranslatable. I think people who don't speak Dutch will also understand. Dag Iris, bedankt voor uw voorzet om iets te doen in het SMAC. Met u als afgevaardigde van het museum wil ik daarover nadenken. Je kent mijn houding. Een instituut is niet helemaal verantwoordelijk voor wat er in het verleden gebeurde. Het zal in elk geval voor najaar 2015 zijn als er iets komt. Ik zal nu al tussen de soep en de patatten beginnen nadenken over wat ik graag zou doen. Altijd met u als vertegenwoordiger. Stuur me eens wat grondplannen op van elke ruimte. Compleet boven, onder, kelders eventueel. De ruimte achter het museum waar Panama zijn boot stond, is die er ook bij? De mogelijkheden. Is er ook een buitenplaats waar ik iets zou kunnen doen? Stuur me zoveel mogelijk grondplannen per post. Wie is er schepen van cultuur in Gent? In de maand augustus komt je maar eens naar Balen om verder na te denken. Begin maar centen te zoeken, dat helpt bij het nadenken. Tot ziens. Het was me ook zeer aangenaam, Jef. So, and then, yeah, very quickly after this email, or a month, or when we had this coffee in Balen, he was already there with this proposal for the exhibition, which was quite ready, in fact. This is the floor plan, the design that was used and how the exhibition has been finished. And he also had some conditions that he pointed out to make this exhibition very clearly from the first day. He asked to I will just highlight some of them because it's too much to talk about everything, of course. To have this collaboration, this CAF, the museums, the collaboration has to be in the exhibition. We should have loans. SMAC should loan a work from MUCA, from Musée, from Middelheim Museum. He, of course, wanted to have an edition of his Campens Informatieboek. And he also had this very clear condition to have the acquisition of the door of Chambre d'Amis, with which was the rehabilitation, what I said before, of the missed acquisition of the Chambre d'Amis. The door is the next one, yeah. And this was important because he's bringing in memory the protests against the principle that Jan Hoet, during Chambre d'Amis, expected the artists to donate their work in exchange for their participation on the exhibition. He just expected to donate, but Jef Geys as well as Panamarenko, they didn't agree with this enrichment of the collection this way, so they demanded fair pay for their work as an artist. And then we, of course, are happy to have this door in the collection now, and it was the first door that ever left the private collection of Jef Geys. So, circles, making circles all the time. A next project he's bringing in memory also is an unexecuted exhibition he wanted to make in the late 80s. And it's an exhibition that was first promised and then cancelled by Jan Hoed. And he decided to bring this memory in Ghent because it's the relation to the Museum of Fine Arts now, former Museum of Hedendaagse Kunst, and SMAC. So he is making this proposal, this design, and the floor plan, and you can see that he's showing, yeah, you can do next, he's showing heel, rood, blauw, enzovoort, or he wanted to show that work in this exhibition. That's now also on view at WIELS, as you know, and he is making reference to other, yeah, if you can go back, to other, yeah, you cannot read this, but there are a lot of topics he is referring to, and this heel, rood, blauw is an artwork that's very much about the history of painting, but also about a lot of other things, and that is he bringing into that exhibition. Yeah, the next one is, no, I mean this one is the floor plan he made for this exhibition in '88, never executed. And then the next one is interesting because here he's making a layering of all the plans. You see the plan of '88, the plan of Museum of Fine Arts. You see our plan, the SMAC ground plan, and you see the colors he's bringing above, the colors of the heel, rood, blauw, and the other design where he is referring to politics and things. And then what he's asking us is to do this in the exhibition, just to remind to the never executed exhibition. He's asking us to make like a sports field, a floor plan in colors, referring to these political colors, referring to heel, rood, blauw, and referring to museums. Jef Geys is also linking colors to institutes and things. So this is all coming together in this sports field where the institutes, politics, museums have to play their game. And then what he's doing next, people who've seen the exhibition will remember this. This was very striking. He decides to spread out 800 sheets out of his archive and to put them on the wall to show this as exhibition material. So there is a lot of history in two spaces of the museum. And yeah, you know, this was the first archiefboek that he made, and in collaboration with Sophie Dederen. And here, these 800 sheets he showed in the museum, where all of the 800 are in this book. And then you had this, yeah, the koffieonderleggers, kind of daily notes he made between 2012 and 2014. Very short period, but he decided to show them, and it was the first time he showed them. They are also on view in WIELS. And he asked the guardians of the museum to select one of them, and yeah, that's the one he donated to the collection of the museum. So it doesn't always have to be the director or the head of collections who decide what's coming into the collection. It's also it's also the people who are daily in the museum. Yeah, and then the next reference he makes is the folding out of the CAF concept, where you recognize the colors of the sports fields and the names of the museums on the wall. And then when we enter, you can see that he asked us to have a loan or show one of his artworks out of each collection. From SMAC, it was the archive, the previous one, yeah. And in the back you see een klein zaadzakje, a little seed bag from museum. And then you see the sokkel of Middelheim Museum and the zwarte overal, the self-portrait with the star from Muka. And further on, he wanted us to have, we had 4 more spaces in the museum at that time, and he wanted us to have 1 space for each museum, and there we should show a slideshow of all the artworks of Jef Geys in that collection. So we have Middelheim Museum showing all the works, Museum showing all the works, Muka showing all the works, and then SMAC. And last but not least, he wanted us to show the Langste Dag, the movie the movie that was made, the film that was made by Jeff Cornelis in June 1986 at the opening day of Chambre d'Amis, very well known. And it's a film like 7 hours duration, I think, even more. And I was discussing with him, like, should we show the whole film, or are we going to show fragments, or how do you want this? And was a discussion, and then at one evening I got this email from him. Dag I, ik meen dat van die film. Starten bij de opening van de tentoonstelling en laten lopen zolang het museum open is. Sluiten en afzetten als het museum sluit en volgende dag gewoon verder. Beter dan al die fragmenten en ook eerlijker tegenover het verleden. Neem dat echt aan van mij. Nu ga ik echt slapen. Jee. So, yeah. And then, of course, we had this campus informatieboek in which he wanted us to edit all the koffieonderleggers. And that was a very short, brief flight through the exhibition.
Questions are for later, but now I want to introduce Frederik Swennen, who is Dean and Professor of Family Law at the University of Antwerp and has been collaborating with Jef mainly on the foundation, the archive, the legacy.
Now I have the difficult task to keep you awake because I will talk to you about legal aspects in the legacy of Jef Geys, on which I collaborated with him between 2009, well, and basically 2018 when he died. Chronologically, what I'm going to tell you would come just before what Iris talked to you about, the exhibition in SMAC. This is what I'm going to tell is about, well, pilgrimages to Balen between 2010 and 2015 on the initiative CODEC. CODEC was, of course, as everything Jef Geys did, a work of art, a living work of art surrounding his archive and the legal structure that the archive would, could, should not, in the end, take. Insofar I could reconstruct on the basis of my correspondence with Jef. In 2009, the commune of Balen had proposed to set up a museum for him. That made him fear of, what this could look like, having the example close by in Mol, Jacob Smits Museum. It was, of course, Jef did absolutely not want a static museum devoted to his work, whatever that then could have been. And so he did not agree, but he contacted Muka, Bart de Bare, who at that time was in preparation of what meanwhile has become the Centrum Kunstarchieven Vlaanderen, Center for Artist Archives Flanders, but at that time did not yet exist. And then Bart proposed to Jef to meet me. Jef first sent me some information, that was the other way around. In bijlage wat informatie tot ziens in 2010. Jef Geys, beste wensen. That was 18 December 2009. When I then went to Balen, Jef had already started working on the project that was called CODEC, Kempens Onderzoeks Documentatie en Educatiecentrum, Kempens Research Documentation and Education Center. That, according to his plans, would become well, a cultuurcentrale, cultural center, linked to his not-for-profit association. He already had a VZW, Cultuurcentrum, and the Cultuurcentrale would then be the counterpart of the nuclear the nuclear plant nearby, well, to add positive things to life, I think. So this started off, our talks started off really on the basis of what Jef considered to be an art project. But already in his first letter he wrote, I have a good connection to Griets Maars, who was a member of parliament at the time from Geel. And well, start seeking the money, this will be important. Yeah, if you yeah, that is the other part of the things he started preparing. And then the official work started with a special edition of the Kempens Informatieblad, in which he first mentioned the names of all persons that could be interested in collaborating either with knowledge or with money, or could be involved in whatever way in this project. And on the basis of that, so this is just, maybe it's here, the special edition of this Kempens Informatieblad. It explains what it is in Dutch and in English, and then it proposes to tax every ticket for a football match in 2010 with 0.01 euro. Or percent, but it's euro actually, and then this would pay the budget for CODEC for 1 year. Unfortunately, this was not carried out in the end. But yeah, then we took this as the starting point for an expert seminar we organized at the University of Antwerp with the Annick Schramme of Cultural Management on the project. And this was on public-private participation, PPP, to set up structures that would allow artist archives well, to remain active, particularly after the artist had deceased. But well, many of these projects are already prepared or set up during the artist's lifetime. And there we brought together Griets Maars and other public representatives of public authorities, also some important collectors and some artists. And they would discuss on the basis of the example that was also in campus, in this booklet. We took Jef Geys as the working example for the day. First, I'm gonna quickly jump to this. So what basically CODEC was conceived as an artist museum, but a living artist museum, connecting, of course, the word terroir. Those who are know the work of Jef will know this concept, linking the local to the global, and the idea was to have a place, call it museum or not, in Balen or nearby, from where the work on Jef's archive would start, but would also connect to other artist archives. Also, for example, that of Walter van den Broek, at that time still a friend of Jef, and still alive also. And so he would connect to other artist archives. And so this would also, a known concept from the work of Jef, would become a final temporary construction. that would be taken over by the people, and so would become a commons. So would really the link with the artists themselves or the experts would be cut, and this would become this would be owned by the public. This would, of course, then be a dynamic and sustainable project and not a static artist museum. Then the difficult part, then we have to go back to the first, again and again. Yeah. Then the difficult part came. So Jef and Bart de Baar and I visited Schouwvliegen, the Minister of Culture at that time. We visited the provincial deputé for culture. We visited the mayor of Balen, and they all were willing to collaborate and to find a building somewhere in Balen or nearby. In Kempens Landschap owns quite some buildings, and so there would be an opportunity. Also, one of the houses of Jef came into the picture. Is now being transformed, by the way. But it became clear when we met with the minister in Brussels that, of course, the public authorities would not provide a house or a place nor money if there were no other investors. Of course. The investors were found. There was some collectors also involved in the expert seminar. Ivo van Varenberg, to just name one of them, who were willing also to invest. But then the problem somewhat was Jef, because the condition of the Flemish community was that he would also donate his archive to the Flemish community, which was, of course, unthinkable. Because the archive, because the difference between archive and works of art was difficult to make. And so the archive as a whole, including the artworks, not only represented artistic value, but of course also financial value. And Jef was not willing to just abandon the financial value of his archive to create this project. We had to find a solution, and fortunately Belgian law has a wonderful solution for this type of problems, and that is the intermediate structure, a private foundation. So it is possible, it's still possible in Belgium, to create a private foundation. Contrary to a not-for-profit association, this has no members, no shareholders, it's just a capital. And the capital is, in this case, would be the archive. But the archive, it becomes the property of the foundation, not of, so it will no longer be the property of Jef Geys, not of the public authorities. It becomes the property of the foundation, and then all parties involved here would give something to the private foundation, and then the foundation would be able to work on education, research, documentation, as said before. But a private foundation also allows to reconcile this artistic purpose with another concern of Jef and of many artists and others who create private foundations. That is that a foundation has to have a disinterested purpose, belangeloos doel, and that was clear what the belangeloos doel or disinterested purpose would be, to educate, research, and document the archive of Jef Geys, clear. But then, as to the financial value, the second purpose would be, and is allowed, was taking care of the Geys family. So Jef Geys, of course, was still alive. His wife, his daughter was underway. She's late. There was an accident on the road, and the 2 grandchildren. So this was also put in the objectives of the private foundation, and then everyone would be happy and we could start working. The benefit of a private foundation is that basically when the archive is donated to the foundation, it has to get a value, and you pay very low taxes on the value, but the value could be 1,000 euro, for example. So it's almost for free. And then you could start selling from the foundation, or start well, licensing and so on. And everything that the foundation gives to the family is also not taxed. So it's a marvelous, I don't believe that it still exists in Belgian law, because it's a very good way of estate planning. But this was so obvious that Jef did not really trust it. Then he asked me, yes, if you can, and again, he asked me to go to Berlin in 2012 for a presentation in the Daad Gallery, for a presentation in the project Archive of Unrealized Projects. Jef was invited for another project in Grenoble, I think, that was not realized. But he asked me to present Codec there, and I should at that time have realized that unrealized projects, something could still go wrong. It was interesting, but then finally in 2012, these are this is the publication in the Belgisch Taalsblad, the official Gazette of Belgium, of the foundation and the purposes and so on. Make sure that Jef could do with or that Jef's family would be taken care of. Another specific aspect of Belgian law was applied here, that the foundation would have a board of directors, expert members, Dirk Snauwaard and so on, but would also have a supervisory board. This is a special technique Belgian law allows to install an advisory board. And the advisory board can veto everything the board of directors decide. And the supervisory board, still on this page, would comprise all adult members of the Geys family. So at that stage, Jef, Mia, and Nina. And so they could veto everything the foundation decided. This started to work, but then in 2015, Jef became ill again. Mia died, and we had forgotten one thing, and that was to build a relation of trust between Nina and the members of the board of directors. There was some distrust, mutual distrust. And at that time, Jef did not believe that the foundation could do what he wanted to do, take care of the Geys family. We had examples, we had tested it in the foundation, but this, I think, the Kempens mindset was, no, I don't. It's too obvious. I don't trust it. And then in the end, he wrote a letter, 15 September 15, to the members of the board of directors of Codec. Ik en de familie hebben besloten om Codec op te heffen. Wij danken u allen om de zorg die u aan de dag legde tijdens de laatste 5 jaar. Ik hoop tot ziens, Jef. And that was that. Laurie Swerts, who was the president of the board of directors, went to court to ask to end the foundation, and this then was published in the official gazette in 2016. End of that story. Well, afterwards, I still continued going to Jef in Balen. The estate was structured in another way. It lives now as Estate Jef Geys. Maybe later, Nina is not yet here. She can explain something about that. But that's my story on the foundation.
Okay. Now it's time for questions, for a conversation, but it's important to also have the conversation with the audience. So I would like to immediately open it up. First, maybe a question to Iris, because of your title, Archive but not retrospective. I was wondering, is it then much more like an introspective character, Jef's archive? Because there's a lot of references, self-references, circular movements, also almost rhizomatic. Is it then more like a kind of introspective thing than a retrospective?
You can call it introspective. I think that's a good word to use. But I think what he was doing in SMAC was showing the possibilities of his archive/art, and how he is. I was witness of the process, of course, but I think the process was also visible in the exhibition. He's really showing how he is, I again use the word circles, how he is circling around his work, around the history, around political events, around all these things, documents that are in this archive, but also in his artworks, and he's making connections, and yeah, you can call it introspective.
And are these connections then, or these circular movements, very well thought of, or are they also very improvised? Like, is there a lot of improvisation in that process, or is it very well designed, let's say?
Maybe none of the two. It's not improvised, and it's not very well. It's more. It's certainly not improvised. He was very quick with the plan and with the ideas and with the connections, with the fact that it was Ghent, that it was SMAC, that there was Jan Hoed, that there was the history. I think he had the first time I met him was not that time, but was 2 months before. And then there was no question, or no, half a year before, there was no question at that time of the exhibition. It was about Geel, Rood, Blauw, enzovoort. It was about this artwork because we didn't have the right installation guide, and we didn't know how to install this work, and we wanted to in another exhibition, in a group exhibition of the collection, and that was my first contact. And then why I'm going there now? That was the first meeting, and then I had this very much this idea that he was already going into the Ghent history in his mind by just meeting me, meeting someone of SMAC. Yeah.
And how was your role as a curator in that context? You were able to join his route and really collaborate with him on the project, or?
But I was, yeah, he needed a curator, and I've never been a curator as such in this project. I didn't have this ambition, and he neither. I think it was very clear that he needed he needed someone who could facilitate a lot, but also someone who really comprehends his work, and I think we were a good team on that. But I've never been a curator who was, no, it was Jef Geys is the curator of his own shows. It has always been like that when he was alive. I think the curators of the Jef Geys shows are only coming up now when he's not alive anymore. Yeah.
Maybe now to go to Frederik, like the title of this session is Archive and Legacy. How is the state of the archive now? Because it seems like, after hearing your story, it seems like an unrealized project. And how is the evolution now? Is there still the idea to do something with the archive based on ideas of Jef, or is it a lost case?
I can the state of, let me first say something about the state of state support of archives, because this all started in 2010 with plans of the Flemish government to create support for artist archives. This really didn't kick off until a few years later as a pilot project. What is now in Muka, the Centrum, was funded, but not to a large extent. if I may say, Jan has now left the room, so I may say it's not that big a success, I think, because there's not many archives, complete archives in it, because the counterpart is absent. So that still is a problem.
I think it's more a documentation center than an archival entity.
Yes, yes. Although the initial idea was, but we can ask Jan, to create a center for archives. Because that was also in the time Bart de Baar was talking to Jef. Then this was created 2019, I think. Then more recently, last year, the government again created a support scheme for artist archives but very small budgets. I think 16,000 or so for to work on archives, not archives, on the legacy of artists. As I said, insofar I know, the major part of the work on the archive is being done with the catalogue raisonnable in WIELS. And for the remainder, the family is managing this itself with a space for it, but not in the, let's say, in the margins, not in the official spotlight of structures, legal structures or other.
Maybe it's a provocative question now, but like if you say archives in relation to legacy, I think legacies are too limited of the potentiality of an archive. And if I don't know the work of Jef so well, but if I look at the archive, and you said it also at some point in the presentation, it's about the commons. It's about how can a public own the information that he gathered together or connected to each other. Then legacy, I think, is too singular. Because the archive is very plural. It's like something that is ongoing, alive, part of a commons, publicly owned, can be publicly owned, can be freely be distributed.
Yes.
The legacy is very much person-bound.
Well,
like,
I had a discussion on that with Nina yesterday. What is the meaning of the word legacy, nalatenschap? If you interpret this in a legal sense, of course it's singular and it's much more limited. But if you take it in the broader sense of what an artist leaves behind, not only in his private estate but more in the public space, then legacy becomes something much broader. And then it is not the property of the artist or his heirs, but it's public property. It's a commons.
But is there any legal solutions for that, to be able to get an archive really into that public sphere, disconnected from, let's say, heirs? Because I've been working with lots of archives, and I see many limits in nalatenschap. I mean,
yes, for a start, legal legacy, contrary to, for example, England, are not public. So you cannot consult the content of a legacy. In England, all wills are public, so you can consult what's in a will and what is described, how is this described, and it's very interesting to work on for example, artist wills. That's one. There is no single legal regulation on working with legacy/archives. The only thing that is regulated is the financial value of the nalatenschap, the estate, so legacy in the strict sense, only with the financial aspects and copyright, both the financial aspects of copyright and the moral copyright. And this really is a difficult one, because copyright is very broad, and working with, for example, we were talking about this before, Iris. I decided I will not include my correspondence with Jef in the PowerPoint, because maybe it's copyright protected, and yeah, no. But I'm not sure. Because you could also claim that the recipient of a correspondence is entitled to use it in his own work, in his own copyright protected work. So it's vague, and many of us have experienced how vague it is with claims that are or not based on solid grounds.
Yes. That's interesting because I've never thought about that. I was just in the intellectual heritage of Jef Geys, in the way of his own manner of speaking and thinking and working, using all of his emails and others, other persons' emails to other people emails to just. So I was going further on this and thinking I can just show it.
But I think you're entitled to, and not to make sure, because what is, for example, letters, diaries, and so on. But I think it's also important for the catalogue raisonnable. What there is legal regulation on the object, who owns the object, the paper on which something is written, and is the content of the object copyright protected. And in many cases, that's not fully clear. And also, do you have you waived copyright by sending content to someone else? Belgium does not have a clear regulation on that, but which makes it interesting for lawyers, of course.
Yeah. As I explained before, with, like, let's say a fax correspondence I had with another artist, there you also have the original is with the sender, the copy is with the recipient. So yeah, where's the copyright there? Huh? It's like a very complicated thing. But you also see that archives lately, in the last 10, 15 years, a lot of galleries are working with a lot of dead artists, like, and start to work more and more with dead artists and buy complete estates, archives. So there's a huge market behind nowadays the archive. But can we open up maybe the questions to the floor? Because maybe there's questions from the floor. Yeah.
It's for Mr. Swennen. Would it have been a solution to make a foundation within the Koning Boudewijn Stichting?
No. Why not? Because King Boudewijn Foundation is a public foundation. So you have private foundations and public foundations. Public foundations are not allowed to have the second purpose I was talking about, taking care of one specific family. So that is a more difficult one. So the counterpart, the taking care of the Geys family would have been more difficult. Also. Yes.
And they will take care for my mother when I'm not there.
Yes, yes, but yes, okay. Now we're talking legal technique here. This is a condition. Probably, I don't know. Of course, I don't know this, but it is possible to donate an archive, a work of art, a collection to the King Boudewijn Foundation under the condition that. In many cases, this is, and of course this is accepted, probably this would also be the case in your funds, probably in the King Boudewijn Foundation. But that is something different in the, technically. And it would be hard, I think, to define a condition that way, that care should be taken of all the descendants of the Geys family. This is often linked to one person or several persons who are still alive. So from the perspective of legal technique, this is more difficult. Secondly, you would have to, how can I say, this acquisition by the King Boudewijn Foundation is not yet, to my knowledge, applied. So you would donate something that is static and on which the foundation or the fund in the foundation can work, while the purpose of the work on the Jef Geys archive was completely different. So this had to had to be marketed to some. They had to sell. They should objects must be sold to take care of the family.
It's also the case in the funds, in my funds. They can sell some objects to increase the value. Or
Yes, again, as a condition to the donation, yeah, which makes it, if there is a clear end point, to say so, then this can, the death of a certain person, this is conceivable. But in other situations, such as the dynamic nature both of the archive of Jef Geys and of the family, the grandsons are not that old. They don't have children yet, to my knowledge, and well, so that's a difficulty. But the main problem in this case for Jef would have been that the final donation, even under conditions, but the final donation of the archive, where he has no longer control over it via a supervisory board or something.
Hello, my name is Evie Bert. I work for the CKV. I have a question. If we're talking about moral rights, what the implications are for research? Because we experienced it not with this estate, but also with other estates, that you kind of get into not only a relation of trust, but when it comes to the end, the legacy or the estate can put a hold on further research. And my question is a bit how far it can go, or when you talk about the commons, I don't think it's a difficult relation, I guess.
I would say, I mean, in case of my archive, I would rather have it totally disconnected from any family, like just donate it to the society and have anyone working with it as they like, you know?
Yes.
But then it's a total disconnection from this, financial, because then it's not about making money. Of course, on the other hand, if you donate it, let's say to a community, let's say the public, the state, then of course, are they taking care of it? That's another thing.
Yeah. And
so it's a very, very delicate exercise.
But in that case, the second purpose of keeping the archive alive financially to take care of a family would not be possible anymore. And there would be there are exceptions to copyright, specifically for scientific research, for artistic purposes, and so on and so on. But they are fairly limited, and then again, it presupposes access to the sources. So if you have received documentation, that would be easy, but then you need access to the sources. The example now, recently, Palais Stoclet in Brussels. This is one example of how the public imposes access to heritage in that case, but it does not exist in other contexts yet.
You mentioned another legal entity that Jef set up, the Kulturzentrale or Cultural Center. Could you talk a little bit about the legal form that took, and if it's still active, and how, if you can, its function might have shifted over the decades?
The structure is a VZW, Vereniging Zonder Winstoogmerk, not-for-profit association. This is a separate legal entity that consists of members, so composed of members, and they should work on a disinterested purpose. For example, artistic practice. That's a general definition, and so the purpose can be defined in a broad way. So this can evolve over time. But the main issue here is that the purpose is disinterested. So this would only be the first purpose I was talking about, and so VZW cannot give benefits, financial benefits, to its members, or not to other parties if not related to the disinterested purpose.
And was that structure cancelled by Codec? And do you remember anything else called Culture not Cultuurcentrale, but Cultuurcentrum WZW, which also existed as a legal entity.
Yes. But now I'm looking at Nina. I think it still exists. The VZW, Jef's VZW still exists. If I may, sorry, Nina, I don't want to embarrass you, but I'm just when the now let me take the email Jef sent me in 2015. There he said. Ik blijf erbij, het is beter Codec te laten ontbinden en voorlopig verder te doen met de VZW Cultuurcentrum. That at that time still existed, and maybe it still exists, Nina, VZW.
But we have to be sure to make a difference between Cultuurcentrale, which was an organism consisting out of members, fake members a lot, but also real persons who worked for my dad, for Jef Geys. But then after that was he reinvented Cultuurcentrale. I don't make a mistake. Centrale is the first one. And then he did the Cultuurcentrum, which was a normal VZW, like Mr. Swennen explained. And that was really with the purpose of helping young artists, other persons, real persons this time. And then after that, he did the Cassini thing, which was a maatschap, a foundation, let's say. But that you explained that, I think.
No, Cassini I did not explain because but I'm happy you mention it because it's not something public. But the maatschap is another, but it's not a separate legal entity. A maatschap allows to structure a private property with what we could call shares, but it's not a separate legal entity. But it allows to separate some parts of an estate.
Now, this time, after that, let's say, there is only the VZW Cultuurcentrale is still existing as a means of helping us with the estate, but the estate is just me and my two sons, to be clear.
Yes, yes, and that is Cassini. Yeah.
We call that Cassini, but it's not an official legal entity, or it's a private thing. But the estate, like you want to call it, it's me and my two sons. And Cultuurcentrale, the first one, were fake persons.
Yeah, yeah. So the answer to the question is Cultuurcentrum still exists, well, as a VZW.
If it's for you, if you want to do an exhibition now and you don't have the good connection with the artists, how do you deal with that?
That's a very good question. I don't think at this point, I would dare to. With Jef Geys.
Still living artist, for instance. You want to do a group exhibition and his work is essential for the message of your exhibition.
You mean Jef Geys' work in a group exhibition? Yeah, I would. Yeah, of course. I would. I would. Nina is making like this. A group exhibition, when we make a group exhibition in the context of a museum or whatever, you do something with a lot of artworks. You bring something together. I'm not a big fan of group exhibitions, but with Jef Geys, I would be very careful. True. We did it in SMAC in 2014. I wasn't a curator at that time. It was my colleague, senior curator, and we showed Geel, Rood, Blauw enzovoort. I was referring to this. This was the first meeting I had with Jef Geys, and it worked out very well. I think Jef Geys was very happy at that time himself, because we had of course, it's an installation. It takes a lot of space. You need a wall of at least 10, 12 meters, I think. So the space was only for this artwork, and the other works were not in the same room. So it worked very well. But at that time, it was really in communication and conversation with Jef Geys himself, and that reassures me. But today, I don't know. We have the same question in the museum, for instance, with Jan Verkruijsen. He, who was a good friend of Jef Geys in the early 80s. He had the same principle. He pointed out that no other artwork should be in the same space as his, and we are carrying this today, even today. Yeah, you take this very seriously, and you have to be, how do you say it, honest, or yeah, you have to have the integrity to take this in mind. But it's a difficult line.
If there are no questions anymore, I think we should prepare for the next session because we need some technical changes. People can have a coffee break. Thanks, Iris and Frederik.
Thank you.